Today's shir is going to be about the 3 weeks, and it is, I wouldn't say based on, it's entirely lifted from a shir of Rabbi Pinchas Friedman, whose shirim are collected many years, decades already, under the title Shvilei Pinchas. He's a dayan in Eretz Yisrael for the the Gero community. In any case, the shir is Le'iloi Nishmas Ben Sion Ben Rachel Shmuel Aaron, somebody from the neighborhood son, and it was Rachel Grossman, the mother of this Ben Sion Ben Rachel, who actually learns with me every week, and she showed me this Monday this particular shir from Pinchas Friedman. We were learning it together, and shortly after she left my house, she received the news that her son had been nifter. This is unfortunately her second child. This is Avi Noam. So this is Le'iloi Nishmas, and also for the zechuyos of this shir should give chizuk and strength to Rachel and Shmuel Aaron, her husband, and the other two daughters, and give them some chizuk to hopefully absorb these very ideas that are in this shir, which essentially are ideas that say that the time of brokenness, the time of the 3 weeks, the time of the Korban, actually embedded in this time are really all the sparks and all the roots of Tov, of goodness and of redemption and of restoration. That's the essence of this idea from Rav Pinchas Friedman, and very appropriate for this moment. So Rachel, if anyone knows her, sitting Shiva in Eretz Yisrael. If you want her contact info, you can ask me afterwards. Anyway, here we go. Alrighty. So the topic we're talking about is called Ben HaMetzorim, the 3 weeks. Everybody knows this, right? Starts with Shivasar B'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, ends on Tisha B'Av. We started the 3 weeks already a while ago, obviously, and this Monday is Rosh Chodesh Av, starting the 9 days. This time period is called Ben HaMetzorim, between the constraints, Metzar, the very narrow, limited place. We're stuck here in a narrow patch, a narrow segment of our journey. You know, every single person, Am Yisrael as a whole, humanity, every single individual, from the moment they're born until the moment they pass on, they are on a journey. And everybody is on their own journey. Our journey is not necessarily something we choose for ourselves. We're born into a particular situation, parents, siblings, what decade it is, what generation it is, what's going on in the world, what our genetics are, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what we're exposed to, what happens to us. These are all composites of what will make up our journey. We don't get to make too many decisions, a few critical decisions in our life, which are kind of how values we're going to choose to integrate, and who we're going to choose to share our life with. We don't get to choose our children. You get to choose your friends. You get to choose your spouse, perhaps. And once you make a couple of those choices, things happen. Just opportunities come into your life, and obstacles, and also opportunities you find along your journey. And nobody can walk in someone else's shoes. Everybody's journey is unique. The journey of Am Yisrael is unique. But what we can do for each other as each person goes through their journey, and of course along the journey there are very bitter patches, narrow patches, like Ben HaMetzorim. And then there are very, open, light, joyful patches, ups and downs, twists and turns. Nobody can walk someone else's journey. The only thing we could do is be there by their side, no seba'ol, bearing the burden with them, the ups and the downs, as they go through their journey. And that means the same thing with everybody's children. Each and every child has their own journey. And what we do as parents, friends, spouses, community members, as we said, is try to see how we could shoulder the burden with them along the way, and also share the joyful moments along the way in real solidarity. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu is with us on our journey all through every step of it. And it is absolutely and positively wrong, a mistake, completely contradictory to view the narrow patches, the Ben HaMetzorim, the difficult patches, the bitter patches, because bitter doesn't mean bad, it just means very hard to swallow. To view those patches as bad or purposeless or indications of God's abandonment, God forbid, or hatred. No, that's not. A bitter patch, a narrow patch, a challenging patch is just that. It doesn't indicate anything else. And we're supposed to relate to it, again, as just a patch that we have to go through and gain from. Not just endure, but grow from. And that's what this is all going to be about. So we're starting out with the fact that the Apterav, the Ohev Yisrael, who we're going to come back to. We do quote the Ohev Yisrael occasionally. The Ohev Yisrael says, and this is one, that Parshas Pinchas, last week's Parsha, okay, is almost always, not every single year, but almost always read on the Shabbos of Ben HaMetzorim, of these 3 weeks, because all the Moadim appear in Parshas Pinchas. Okay? And if you look at it, okay, you see that there are 21 days of the Moadim, and he says this corresponds to the 21 days of Ben HaMetzorim, and that's why Pinchas, Ezra, when they came back after the first destruction, back to Israel with Ezra established this cycle of Torah reading, and he established that Pinchas is read in the 3 weeks. Specifically for this parallel, the 21 days of the Moadim, like the 21 days of Ben HaMetzorim. So if you look at number 2, what are the 21 days? Shabbos is 1 day, Rosh Chodesh is 1 day. This is all listed in Pinchas. 7 days of Pesach, 1 day of Shavuos, 2 days Rosh Hashanah, 1 day Yom Kippur, 8 days Sukkot, 21 days. So we already have a parallel between the Moadim and the 3 weeks. Now we think of the Moadim as the joyous times, and we think of the 3 weeks as the terrible times. But they're obviously corresponding to each other. Moadim is in the 3 weeks because we're going to see that the Moadim are really the root, the shoresh of the 3 weeks. Okay, how that works. It's the Moadim that are the source of the 3 weeks and the goal of the 3 weeks. So if you realize that if you think about it, and we're going to get to this again, if you do the math, these are 21 days, okay? However, the 3 weeks is actually, if you include Shavasar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, it's actually 22 days, okay? So there's another day, there's a 22nd day, which is Tisha B'Av, all right? Look what Yirmiyahu says regarding Tisha B'Av. Oh, wait, we're going to get there in a minute, Sorry, before we get there, wait, hold that thought. Regarding the 21 days of the Moadim, corresponding to the 21 days of the 3 weeks, okay, and what that means, look at Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu Perek Aleph, we read this is the Haftorah of Parshas Pinchas. We read it last week, right? So, Perek Aleph, Hashem begins to show Yirmiyahu a nevuah. Now, just for a little background, a Navi saw images. Okay, the images were mishalim, were always a mashal, and the Navi, after the preparation and the entering into a deep state of meditation, and then having the mind and the neshama kind of like disconnect itself a little bit from the body, which was a very traumatic experience for the Nevi'im, and their body went into convulsions and seizures and all kinds of stuff. They were able to get to a higher place, and they saw images, and it was their job, and it was really the measure of the Navi, how they would understand that image, and how they'd understand really the abstract idea that they were conceiving, and what type of mashal they would apply to it to help bring it to the people. So they saw something more abstract. They would then attach some type of mashal to it, which they would view that abstract idea in some type of more concretized way, and then they were really in charge of recruiting their imagination to identify a perfect mashal for what they saw so that they could bring it to the people, okay? For example, if you ever want to know what gravity is, and you go on YouTube, gravity for dummies, okay? Einstein didn't talk about gravity in childish ways. He wrote long equations, or whoever, Newton and long equations that most of us don't understand. But if you go there, they'll explain it to the average person. They'll say, imagine that space is like a huge plastic tablecloth. Infinite, spreading out infinitely. And imagine you take a bowling ball and you put it in the middle of that tablecloth. Now the whole tablecloth is like caved in. And anything on that tablecloth is going to fall towards the bowling ball. So the earth is like that ball which has mass, and space curves. The mass curves space. So you have like now there's no plastic tablecloth and bowling ball, okay? But that's a mushal to bring these abstract ideas to people. So that's what the Navi Lahavdil had to do. So Hashem showed him an idea, and he said, Yirmiyahu, what do you see? How do you see this? Vayidvar Hashem Elai Lemar. Hashem said to Yirmiyahu, Ma Torah Yirmiyahu, what do you see? V'amar Makel Shoked Anira. I see a rod, a staff, like a branch of an almond tree. Vayomer Hashem Elai. Then Hashem said to me, Hey Tav Tilaros, you saw very good, excellent. You saw well. That was a perfect interpretation. Why? Ki shoked ani al dvarai lasos. Because I am going to be shoked. Now, what does that mean? Okay, Rashi explains. You have seen well. The almond tree hastens to blossom before all other trees. You know the first song of the Tu Bishvat Hashkedia Parachat. I too hasten to perform my word. Okay, and Eicha Rabbah, which is the Medrash on Eicha, explains an almond tree, look at this, takes 21 days from blossoming until it's completely ripe, as the number of days from the 17th of Tammuz, when the city was broken into, until 9th of when the temple was destroyed. So clearly, again, just like Pinchas is the Moadim, and that's in the 3 weeks, and the almond tree is 21 days till it blossoms into a fruit, which is birth, life, beauty, springtime. That's parallel, okay, to, that's the almond tree. So that's how Hashem will bring his paranos, the punishment in the 3 weeks, which is 21 days. Clearly, again, we're comparing the 3 weeks to an opportunity of growth and life and blossoming, right? That's clear. So this 3 weeks is associated with new beginnings, restoration, okay, holidays, moadim. That's what the 3 weeks are associated with, and we're not used to thinking about them like that. Alrighty. Now, as we said, furthermore, in terms of these days being associated not just with moadim, not just with blossoming in life, they're associated with rachamim. So, from the 17th of Tammuz until the end of Tammuz is 13 days. This parallels the 13 midas harachamim that Moshe got after he broke the luchos on the 17th of Tammuz. From the Rosh Chodesh Av until the 9th of Av is 9 days. This parallels the 9 midas harachamim that Moshe employed after Chet HaMeraglim. Now, Moshe broke the luchos on Shavasar B'Tammuz, okay, and Hashem taught him the 13 midas harachamim. 17th of Tammuz, all right, 17th of Tammuz is 13 days, as we said, 13 midas harachamim. Then you have the Rosh Chodesh Av till Tisha B'Av, 9 midas harachamim, which we have Tanya so nicely quoted for us here. Okay, this is the first one that's listed in Kisisa as the 13 midas harachamim. The second one in Shalach is the 9 midas harachamim. Why they're different, we're not getting into now, but this is 13 and 9. So the 3 weeks and the 9 days are associated with the midas harachamim. How much more can you get to show you that these days are not days of hatred and anger, destruction and loss? They're not. They're roots of something much greater, and there's much more. How much more can you get? Much more. Okay?
That's 22.
29 is 22.
Correct. So you'll see that's what we're getting. Now look what's in the notes. 13 plus 9 is 22. Why is Ben HaMetzorim only 21? So look at this. The halacha is, okay, Tachnun, which men say generally, women can say it too, where you put your head down and you cry over the Korban, is not said of all days on Tisha B'Av. Why? Because according to Rashi, Tisha B'Av is a moed. Ta-da! It's a moed. But look at Eicha, Perak Aleph. Okay, Sila kol abirai Hashem bekirbi kara alai moed. This is about Tisha B'Av. He summoned an assembly, but moed means everyone got together. Tisha B'Av is referred to as a moed. Again, so first of all, Mashiach, why is that? Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av. Everybody knows that. My son Mordechai Menachem was born Erev Tisha B'Av. And Menachem is Mashiach's name also. Hashem poured out his wrath on sticks and stones, thereby preserving our nation. Yes, people did suffer, but of course, it was a terrible korban, but primarily it was the land and the Beis HaMikdash, the physical that was destroyed, to the point that the Romans plowed it over, and dug, really destroyed the land itself, which now has come back to life with the return of the Jewish people. But Tisha B'Av itself is called a Moed on account that we survived. And that, as we said, Mashiach is born. So what else do you need to prove that we need to look at these 3 weeks differently? Well, there's more.
Tisha is also Yeshua.
Yes, how?
The word Tisha, Yeshua.
Yeshua. Okay, beautiful. Now, look here. Okay. On the 17th of Tammuz, Moshe broke the first luchos. Okay, now look at this. Question. This is from the Gemara. Rabbi Chanina ben Agil went to him and asked him a question. Rabbi Tanchum said to him, I did not hear anything on this matter from Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi himself, but this is what Shmuel bar Nachum, the brother of the mother of Afa, son of Rabbi Chanina, said to me. And some say he was the father of the mother of Achai, son of Rabbi Chanina. Okay. It does not mention the word good in the first luchos. The word tov does not appear in the first luchos, since they were ultimately destined to be broken after the Jews made the golden calf. Careful here. We might think that it means that the word tov does not appear in the first luchos. By the way, does anybody know? It does appear in the second luchos. Does anybody know where it appears in the second luchos? Come on, you do know. Huh? Very good. Kabed et avicha vet imecha, and it's very significant that it's in the mitzvah of kibbud avim. Leman yitav loch. Now, tov does not appear in the first luchos. You might think because they're going to be broken, it's going to be Shavasar B'Tammuz, it's going to be the beginning of down the road in the future, the destruction of Yerushalayim. How could you say good? Something that breaks, how could that be good? Obviously, this is a terrible churban, therefore you can't associate the word tov with it. No way. That's not the way to think about it. The Chazal are telling us step by step by step that this is not the reason, that we're not supposed to look at the 3 weeks as total churban and destruction and hatred and anger and loss and hopelessness. It's the source of the Moadim are connected to it, right? The 13 Midas HaRacham are connected to it. Tisha B'Av is called a Moed, as we said before. The 3 weeks are like a blossoming of a new fruit, of the first fruit. So why is Tov not in the first luchos? Okay, the gematria of Tov is what? 17. When were the luchos broken? The 17. What word is not in the luchos? Tov. Okay, what is going on here? The first luchos were broken on Tov, the 17th, on the day Tov of Tammuz. Okay? The gematria of Tov is 17. Moshe broke the luchos. Now here becomes a famous medrash from Shmos Rabbah, because he saw the letters engraved in the luchos had flown away. Remember? First he saw all the letters flew away, and then he dropped them and he broke them, because they didn't have ruchnius on them anymore, and they shattered, right? Of the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis, because the luchos did not have the word Tov, there was one letter missing that were never on those first luchos. What letter was that? Tes. The letter Tes was not on the first luchos. So 22 letters of the alphabet, but 21 flew away. Tes was never on the luchos. Tes, which is the beginning of Tov. Tov never flew away. Why? Okay. It never flew away. Shlomo Rabbah says the shattering of the luchos and the dispersal of the letters is seen as the dispersal of the sparks or the infinite parts of the Torah throughout all of mankind and all of history. You might have all heard this idea that it's a Hasidic idea. Chabad made made it very popular, how the sparks, of the original light, the R, are scattered throughout history, throughout all humanity, and it's our job to gather the sparks. Have you heard about the nitzotzot? What that means is in every culture, in every nation, in every person, there's some tiny spark of ruchnius, of kedusha, something that speaks of Hashem and kavod shemayim, the honor of Hashem. And we could just we went into Gullus as a way of extracting, finding and extracting all these sparks. In our story of the Shviras HaLuchos, the breaking of the Luchos, the fact that they were shattered is the same idea. The little tiny pieces of the Aseres HaDibros, the ideas, the instructions, are scattered throughout history, and we're here to retrieve them through all experiences, everything we've gone through. We're pulling out these sparks. Okay? Our mission is to gather the sparks or the pieces and restore them into a clear, coherent words and instructions once again. Clearly, Shavasar B'Tammuz, the breaking of the Luchos, the breaching of the walls of Yerushalayim. Okay? The Luchos that didn't say Tov, that didn't have a tes, okay, represents the idea, and this is what the Gemara is going to say soon, that we should never, the reason tes isn't there and Tov isn't there, is that nobody should make the mistake of thinking that Tov was shattered, and Tov is non-retrievable, and Tov was lost. Tov was never there, never shattered, never scattered, never lost at all. Meaning that Tov, or the Tes, which appears in the second Luchos, the Tov in the second Luchos, means that through our process of gathering all the sparks, what we are actually engaged in is the process of Tov. Tov is the history, the Golus, the whole mission of the Jewish people to restore the word of Hashem to the world so that it becomes clear and coherent and everybody has an understanding of it and aligns themselves with it. Tov was never part of the shattering. It remained above, absolute, unbroken.
What is the original source for this?
Here, it's right here, the Shmos Rabbah. Okay?
That's the Torah continuity also, the 9 months of later.
We're going to get there. It's in here. The Maharal says that. Now look at what I wrote next. Here, what we wrote. Another level to prove this point, to deepen it. From the beginning of the Torah, and this gets a little Kabbalistic, until the word Tov, in Vayar Elokim es ha'ar ki Tov, okay, there is no tes, okay? The tes first appears, and the word Tov first appears in the story of the Or, and it was not the sun and the moon, it was the spiritual light, which, what did Hashem do with it? He hid it. It was hidden. Where is it hidden? Where is that Or Haganuz? It's hidden throughout life, throughout the world, physically, in the physical world. It's hidden in the emotional, psychological world, hidden in people's minds, in humanity, in history. This is the hidden light that Tes represents, that Tov is associated with. Tov is the restoration. Hashem hid it for what? For the future. For the righteous, meaning it's the job of the righteous to always work towards that future where that light will again be exposed. So here, from the beginning of the Torah until the word Tov, Vayar Elokim es ha'ar ki Tov, there is no tes. The tes first appears in reference to the spiritual light, which is created on the first day and then hidden. This means that the hidden light is Tov. It's the hidden light that's Tov. It's the Shviras HaLuchos, the broken pieces of the Luchos that are now scattered, okay, throughout history, so to speak, the sparks. That's the Tov. The Tes is the, like, a letter that's officially associated with this whole idea. That Tisha B'Av is Tov, the Golus is Tov, gathering the sparks is Tov, that all of this is our mission, and that it leads eventually to and from the Moadim, that it's the beginning of the restoration, it's the process of restoration, of rebirth, like the almond tree. Tet has mystical connotations, and is, according to the Maharal and the Arizal, it is associated with life itself, the 9 months, the months of a fetus in the mother's womb, the emergence of life. And according to Arizal, which we're not going to get into, it's associated with the one bone that Tchias HaMesim starts with, the bone that never disintegrates, which is the Luz, associated with the letter Tes, okay? Here, furthermore, Amar Rav Yeshua, okay? Haroet Tes b'chalomo, if somebody sees a Tes in their dream, Siman Yafelo, it's a very good sign, okay? Why is that? If we say it is because the word good, tov, is written in the Torah and begins with the letter tes, okay, then one could say instead that it is an allusion to the verse from Yeshayahu, which is a verse of destruction. V'tetitiha b'matet, I don't have it in Hebrew. B'mate'ateh. B'matateh. Okay, I should have it in Hebrew here. Oh, it's on top. Oh, it's on top, sorry. Got it. Okay. So I will sweep it with the broom of destruction, which also contains the letter tes several times and is referring to punishment. No. The Gemara says we mean that when sees one tes in his dream, not multiple, it is a good sign. Okay? Now, what does this mean? It means that tes, the Gemara is telling you, if you see a tes, which is associated with tov, Tisha B'Av, all that, it's life. It's a good sign. It means you're destined to life. So what we're saying here is this following idea. The main idea we're building here is, Pinchas Friedman is building here, is that, again, all of these things come together to tell us that it is the entire process of Golus, which is really the Iker phase of Jewish history. Now, we've talked about this a lot. When we were young as a nation, when we were children, just like any child who lives in their parents' home, okay, the parent takes care of them. The parent does everything for the child. The parent bathes the child and dresses the child and feeds the child and makes sure the child's healthy and takes care of them when they're sick and talks to the teachers and beats up the bullies and et cetera, okay? And the parent is very present in the child's life, very evident. And this parallels the first 1,000 years of Jewish history where we were like children in Hashem's home. We've talked about this in many different ways. And that explains why this first Tekufa from Avraham till Chorban Bayis Rishon, which is 1,000 years, this idea, I mean, this way of looking at this phase of our existence as a nation, is consistent with open miracles, prophecy, because a parent is directly involved. They speak to the child, they tell the child what's right and wrong, they take care of things for the child. This is the whole entire era of Nevuah and Nisim, Beis HaMikdash, all of that. Interestingly enough, this period, okay, it doesn't last forever. We generally like to think about it as the glory days, but we've taught many, many times here that there is a Gemara that explains that Esther, that the story of Purim, which is after the Churban, when Hashem goes into hiding, the beginning of Hester Panim, where Hashem no longer does open miracles. Esther, the Gemara asks, why is Esther, okay, Ayelet HaShachar, she's called Ayelet HaShachar, the dawn of the morning. Why is Esther referred to as Ayelet HaShachar, the dawn of the morning light? So the Gemara answers, you know this, because just like the dawn is the end of the night, so to Purim, Esther, this whole new period of Jewish history that's starting now, it's the end of the miracles. Just like the dawn is the end of the night, so too, the period of Hester Panim, starting with Purim, that's finally the end of the night, the era of the miracles. So what we're saying here, Gemara is telling you that the whole entire period of Nisim and Nevuah is referred to as the nighttime. Okay? It's like the Gemara says, it's referred to as the nighttime. Whereas the period of Hester Panim, the long period of Golus, which Purim starts, because we've taught here that the Second Temple era was really not a restoration of the first Beis HaMikdash, it was really just the gateway to the Golus. Because the Beis HaMikdash, the second one, was like a shul. It didn't have any miracles in it. So it had a Mizbeach for the sacrifices, it had a menorah, it had a shulchan, but it didn't have the Aron, and it didn't have the Urim V'Tumim, and it didn't have any of the miracles at all, and there was no Nisim, and there was no Nevuah. It was like a big shul, with a little bit more, they did a little more than we do. But it was the beginning of the Golus. It was a transitional phase into the Golus. So this long Golus, where we are given the responsibility to gather up those lights and make those messages coherent again, that's the morning, that's the dawn, that's the almond tree that's beginning to bud and blossom. And we've talked about this in terms of Rachel and Leah. Remember this? Mm-hmm. Leah represents the first Kufa, Rachel represents the second Kufa. The essential idea here is that the second Kufa, the second period, which is called the dawn, the light, the beginning of day, is the Iker. Now, there's a famous Aramaic statement, okay? Shraga b'tiara mai mahani. We've taught this before also. A torch in the daylight serves no purpose, meaning there was no reason for the Jewish people in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, when there were so many nisim and so much nevuah, like a child in the parents' house, to really develop themselves, because everything is coming from the outside. There was a great light outside the Jewish people shining on us, but we had not yet ignited the light inside of us because there was no point to it. Only when Hashem took away the nisim and Hashem took away the nevuah and things went dark outside we were in Gullus, there was persecution, there was disrespect for the Jewish people, disregard for our kavod. Like, you know what happened on Tisha B'Av and on Shavasar B'Tammuz, they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. Shavasar, they put a statue, an idol in the Beis HaMikdash. They burnt the Sefer Torah. All kinds of terrible things that happened at these times. Disregard for who we were and what we stood for. Only when it gets pitch black outside, then do we realize that we have no option but to find that light inside ourselves and to start to ignite that inner hidden light, the Or Haganas, to become the source of all that's right and good and true in the world, and bring our message by the way we live, by our lifestyle, by our value system, by our commitments, by our sacrifices, bring our message to the world from within ourselves, not from Hashem. It doesn't mean Hashem is angry at us. It doesn't mean a parent is angry at the child when the time comes for the parent to withdraw a little and stop doing everything for the child and start letting the child emerge on their own. After 1,000 years of the Jewish people imbibing and integrating all the values, the Torah, the Tanakh, 24 Sifrei Tanakh, with all the basics of everything, all the essence of Torah, right? Once we've integrated that, now we have 2,500 years of Torah Sheba'al Peh where it comes from us. All those ideas are integrated, applied, and they reemerge in all kinds of new variations and new forms. And this is when we start to be the source of the light, which is exactly what a parent really wants from their child, what Hashem really wants from us. So this period of Chorban, the beginning of Shavasar B'Tammuz, the breaking of the Luchos, and the Chorban of the Beis HaMikdash that dispersed us all into Gullus, this is viewed as the beginning of our personal, national development. In a real way. As you can see, that no matter how much Hashem did for us in the first Kufa, it didn't penetrate. We still violated basic mitzvahs. We went through the motions. We acted as if everything was just, rituals, meaningless rituals, until finally Hashem said, you're getting to a point where it's so self-evident. And this is Yeshayahu, 100 years before the Chorban's already starting to say this. You're behaving in a way that it's simply clear that everything coming at you from the outside is not penetrating. You're impervious to it. It's not becoming you. The only way it's going to be you is if I take it all away, I send you out into the world, darken the world around you, and then let's see if everything I invested in you starts to germinate and sprout and become something of its own. And that's exactly what happened. So these 3 weeks are representing the blossoming. Okay, it's representing, it's Tov, Tes is Tov, it's going to be a Moed, because the way Tisha B'Av is going to be a Moed, and Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av, is really saying that mitoch Yerida, from falling to the depths, that's where the Aliyah comes from, and it's ours. This time around, when we restore the Beis HaMikdash on Tisha B'Av, it's going to be because we rebuilt the Beis HaMikdash through our efforts. And now, through this process of gathering the sparks, okay? Where do we gather sparks from? Everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Jews, of course, non-Jews, absolutely, from the animal kingdom, from physics, from science of every sort. There's nothing you can't learn something from and gather a spark from. So here's the Gemara regarding that. It's actually, Avos, which is a Mishnah. One who learns from his fellow one chapter, or one law, or one verse, or one utterance, okay, afilu os echad, meaning one letter, okay, even one letter, must treat him with kavod. Remember we said that when we talk about kavod, and don't forget, the word tov appears in kibud aveim. Why? Well, let's talk about kavod for a minute, and giving kavod to someone you learn even one letter from. And kibud aveim, your parents who brought you into the world. The whole idea of kavod, remember we said this again, a very fundamental idea. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not need us for anything. Hashem can run this world perfectly well on his own, as is evident. Every Shabbos we stop. The 39 malachas break down into 3 categories. Everything we normally do for the pursuit of our food, our clothing, our shelter. We stop on Shabbos. The world goes on without us putting in all that effort. Shemitah, a whole year, the world goes on. In fact, Hashem gives us a bumper crop in the 6th year. We have for the 7th and the 8th. Hashem doesn't really need us. There's only one thing that we are created for and given independence for, given autonomy for, given bechira for. One thing Hashem cannot do for himself. And when I say this, I say Hashem created it this way. And the Rav Moshe Shabir used to stress this, Zichrono Livracha, all the time. What is the one thing that no one can provide themselves, and Hashem set up a world where he cannot provide it for himself. And what is that? Kavod. Kavod. Kavod is not false. It's reverence, appreciation, admiration, and the ultimate display of kavod is emulation. If we respect someone so much, we can, as we said, treat them with great love and do things for them. That's ava, that's mitzvahs aseh. We can step back and make sure not to offend them or do anything that would violate their values or their sensitivities. That's yira, that's lo saseh. But beyond that is even more. How, if you revere someone so much and appreciate what they're doing here, you want to extend their reach by emulation. So the one thing we are here for is to be a source of kavod shamayim. Everything else Hashem can do for himself. Just like we can't give ourselves kavod, if you try to give yourself kavod, you threaten someone with a gun to give you kavod. We have dictators who do that. It's not kavod, it's a joke, like North Korea. You beg someone to give you kavod. It's pathetic. You buy yourself kavod by giving a big donation, putting your name. It's not kavod when you somehow figure out a way to make sure that you get it. Kavod is a free will gesture that comes from the other person, and for that Hashem requires humans, individuals with autonomy, who have bechira, to freely discover from within themselves, based on what Hashem invested in us in that first tkufa, and then what we found within ourselves in the long tkufa of Galus, we emerge as a people that recognize and latch ourselves onto HaKadosh Baruch Hu for better, for worse, appreciate the Hashem's hand and Hashem's, not only Hashem's governance, our partnership with Hashem, as we spoke about many times from the Nefesh HaChaim, our role as co-creators of this world with Hashem. We always want to make the world a better place with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's our job. So we appreciate that, and we become a source of kavod to Hashem. So the word tov, which is what happens, this is what happens through Golus. We become the source of kavod Shemaim. The word tov appears in kibud of ve'em, because honoring parents, which is also teachers and all the people we respect, older siblings, all the halacha, is just to teach us and train us in the concept of kavod, because that's really all we're actually here to accomplish. Everything else Hashem could do for himself. And every particular situation on our journey, bitter or sweet, is an opportunity for kavod shamayim somehow or another. So he says here, if a person teaches you anything, you have to treat them with kavod, because kavod is when somebody teaches somebody something, we learn it, we integrate it, the light goes on, we become different because of it, we become we have more opportunity to be kavod shamayim because of something that we gained from someone else, and therefore we show that our greater capacity for kavod causes us to treat them with kavod. So who's the prime example of this? David Melech Yisrael. He learned only 2 words, okay? He only learned Shnei Devarim Bilvad, 2 words from Achitofel, who was not a good guy at all, yet he called him his teacher, his guide, his intimate, as it says in Tehillim, okay? He says, Ava'ata enosh ke'erki, alufi miudai, you are my equal, my guide, my intimate. And is this not a kal v'chomer? If David, king of Israel, who only learned 2 things from Achitofel, called him his teacher, his guide, his intimate, how much more must one who learns 1 chapter or 1 law or 1 verse or 1 utterance or 1 letter from his fellow treat him with honor? And there is no honor except Torah. As it says in Mishlei, Be'ein tov ela Torah. Again, what do we see the word tov? Tov is Torah. Torah is now scattered. Torah is in the sparks. Torah is everywhere. Torah of the first luchos is for us to gather up, and that's tov. Okay, in Mishlei it also says, Shenemar ki lekach tov nasati lachem torasi al tazovu. A good portion I gave you, My Torah, never forsake it. These words in Mishlei Proverbs are telling us that what's good is this entire process of restoring the Torah. So, there is even a secret hidden in the construction of the letter Tes. Look at the letter Tes. The Ohev Yisrael, who we quoted earlier, says, look at the way Tes is. The head of the Tes is curved in. It's hidden. The Tes of Tov, the Tes, the first word appears in the word Tov in the Torah. The Tes of the R that's hidden. It's curved in. Ohev Yisrael says that the hidden head that is tucked inside the Tes is a symbol of the Or Haganuz. Okay? It's not, it's curved over. It's not standing straight and proud. It has to be unfurled, so to speak. It has to be, discovered and straightened. This is the job of the Jewish people throughout the Golus. So the idea here is, okay, just like a child and a parent, Am Yisrael throughout the Golus, okay, this is an opportunity to be viewed not as chas v'shalom in any negative way, not as abandonment, not as anger, not as hatred, not as, whoa, Hashem has left us, none of that. It's exactly the opposite. The more HaKadosh Baruch Hu hides himself, okay, the more HaKadosh Baruch Hu is silent. What that means is that Hashem is giving us the opportunity to speak. Hashem is giving us the opportunity to speak on His behalf. On His behalf. Now, we'll just add another idea which is not in the notes, which I've spoken about, also a beautiful idea from Moshe Shapiro. Just to understand this. Bacho tivche balelos, right? Tisha B'Av is associated with bechia, crying. What is crying? When we cry, our eyes don't work, right? And our mouth doesn't work. We can't speak a coherent sentence, and we can't see straight, okay? By the way, in Eicha, whole nother class, and all the prakim of Eicha are according to the Aleph Beis, which is very associated with what we just spoke about, the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis that were on the Luchos, except the letter Tes, which wasn't on the Luchos. All the chapters of Eicha, except one, are according to the Aleph Beis, but in every chapter, interestingly, what comes first, Peh or Ayin? Ayin Peh. In every chapter, they're reversed. The Peh comes with the Ayin. That has to do with the Meraglim, that they spoke before they saw. But the idea is, when we get to Tisha B'Av, the eyes and the mouth are not in order. They don't work, because we're crying. What does that mean, that Hashem is crying? The Medrash tells us, the Eicha, that is as if Hashem is crying. What does that mean? And we're crying, Hashem is crying. What is the opposite of crying? Crying means incoherence. The word bechia means confused. As Paro said about the Jewish people, Nevochim, from the Shoresh, the root bechia, Nevochim heim ba'aretz, they're all lost in the desert, they don't know where they're going. Bechia means confused. You can't see, you can't speak, you don't see a path in front of you that makes any sense. You're completely lost in confusion. Okay? The opposite of that is clarity, direction. When it says that Hashem is crying, there are midrashim that talk about Hashem crying about the Churban. What that means is that Hashem's clear word, the first luchos, okay, cannot be found. The world does not look like a place where there's clarity of what it is that we're supposed to know and the path we're supposed to walk and what's right and wrong. The world doesn't look like a place that the dibur, the word, the spoken, clear, coherent word of Hashem is guiding people and guiding life. Rather, it looks like a world of confusion, and nobody knows what the path, and everybody is floundering and afraid, living in fear, lurching from one desperate, kind of like life, raft to another. What they think is a life raft. This will help me. This will help me. Completely unmoored, chaotic, right? This is what the world looks like. It looks like bechia. The eyes don't see a path, and the mouth can't put together a coherent sentence of what's right and wrong. That is what the world looks like throughout the Golus. It is the Jewish people's responsibility, and when we always talk about the Jewish people, this is not racist. Anybody can be a Jew at any moment. We do not discriminate on any basis whatsoever. You all have to just accept the Torah. That's it. And if you don't accept, person doesn't accept the Torah, they must accept the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach. That's for all humanity. In any case, the Jewish people, those who understand the mission of the Jewish people and accept it, they are here to bring some clarity and coherence, to wipe away the eyes that can't see, to restore coherent speech to the mouth, to restore dibros, to restore the dibros. And in order to do that, we have to pick up the pieces that are found everywhere in everyone through all times, little sparks of the emes that you can find everywhere. And do not make a mistake. It's not just the Jewish people who are busy making the world a better place and should be busy with this and bringing kavod shamayim and picking up the sparks. Our message has penetrated the world too. And many, many among the Umos HaOlam are also very, very motivated and inspired with the same type of way. Okay? Not everybody. It's our job to make sure it's everybody. That's our job. But until it's everybody, it's our responsibility to always make a Kiddush Hashem, Kavod Shamayim, see the good in everyone. My grandfather, Shimon Schwab, would often stress this. It's a fundamental idea that unfortunately is not stressed enough. My grandfather would never ever refer to the other nations as Goyim. Even though it just means nations, it has a derogatory connotation. Okay, Chas v'sholom, would he ever use a terrible word for a non-Jewish female? I was very careful in my house to refer to the people that work in my house never by any derogatory names, Chas v'sholom, like how people refer to their help or whatever sometimes. And he would only refer to the Gentiles as the Umos HaOlam, the nations of the world. And he stressed that although it's understandable that because of how we were persecuted for so long in so many countries by the Gentiles, we would tend to look at them in a very derogatory fashion and call them names because they were not good to us by and large. I mean, that's an understatement. That's saying it gently. However, it is a Jew's responsibility to understand that by denigrating, especially now in America, by denigrating those who are not Jewish, chas v'shalom, what we're really saying is that we haven't succeeded in being that light to the nations and finding those sparks and elevating them. Rather, we should celebrate every achievement, spiritual and moral achievement and advancement of any one of the nations of the world as a whole or as individuals, because that means our message is penetrating. It doesn't behoove us to put them down also for another reason. If Hashem is the king of the world and the world is a bunch of pathetic, unsalvageable, I don't know what negative word you want to call them, okay? Those type of humans, that doesn't speak very well of Hashem. But if Hashem is the Melech Malchei Melachim, the King of Kings of educated, sophisticated, morally developed, godlike people, that's already something. Okay? It's our job to elevate Hashem by elevating Hashem's people, those that are Tzelem Elokim, which is all people. And so to seek out those sparks and make a Kiddush Hashem and inspire people and cause them to think about moving up to the next level and celebrate every achievement that is a aspect of their Tzelem Elokim. And I'll just end with one little story, which is always to me, incredibly inspirational. We had a worker, a fix-it man, we called him, in our home. I mentioned this many years ago. And his name was Mario. Remember him, Gitzi? Now Mario comes in, he looks like bad. He's got a bandana, tattoos, I think, chains, the whole thing, that beard, the whole biker, and he's the sweetest person in the world. And what's his story? So this is Mario's story. He was Puerto Rican, raised, when we had Hurricane Sandy, we had 2 full tanks of gas in our cars, but our cars were dead because they were submerged. I'm like, I'm not going to waste this gas. Let's call Mario. He knows how to siphon gas out of a tank. So anyway, but he was very good to us for a long time. Anyway, so Mario told me a story, and it's an unbelievable story. He was born, forget it, his parents, mother, father, drugs, alcohol, abandonment, neglect, the whole story, okay? He didn't have a normal life. By the time he was a young man, he was in prison, okay? And he was he was addicted to alcohol, he was addicted to drugs, I don't know what crime he did, I didn't ask him, but he was in prison. Now, when you're a Puerto Rican drug addict in prison, okay, you don't get the benefit of being, unfortunately, okay, being in prison because you're an educated person with a beautiful life who happened to be guilty of a white-collar crime, and you're sitting in a beautiful camp, and you're getting, and in those cases, what happens, unfortunately, when they're Jewish prisoners, and not everyone is guilty, the law goes a lot of ways, but there's Jewish prisoners, unfortunately. Okay, it's unfortunate that we have the guilty ones, and unfortunate that we have the innocent ones that are sitting in prison. In any case, if chas v'shalom a person is a religious Jewish prisoner, oh my gosh, you can't imagine the amount of chesed organizations, shiurim, concerts, there's whole organizations to help these people, and it's a good thing. There's so much support. So much support. But when you're a Puerto Rican drug addict, okay, who's guilty of I don't know what, there's no support. Nobody's coming to learn with you. Nobody's giving you kosherim. Nobody's taking you to, nobody's building you up. It's not how it works. And so this Mario was all alone, and he said to himself, there's got to be something better for me. This can't be what I'm about. And he, the saying, you pull yourself up with your own bootstraps. How do you do that? How do you pull yourself up with your own bootstraps? But the neshama is very strong. This is called, by the way, loving Hashem b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzirecha. What does it mean you should love Hashem with your two yetzer hara, yetzer hatov? Tov, as we know, Ramban says, means permanent. That's why Tov was not in the first Luchos, because people would say Tov isn't permanent, it's shattered, okay? Tov is permanent, okay? It lasts, it's sustainable. Yetzer Tov means you harness your koach hayetzira, your creative energy, to do something permanent and good in the world. But and you're supposed to love Hashem with that. But what's the Yetzer Hara? Same thing, you harness your creative energy, and what do you do with all your initiative and your creativity and your drive? You do something that's ra. Ra comes from the word ra'ua, like a chair with three legs is a kisei ra'ua. It doesn't stand, it's not permanent, it doesn't work. You harness all your energy, putting into something that doesn't work. That's called the Yetzer Hara. But that fact that it doesn't work, that's what teaches you that it doesn't work. So you take that energy and you say, now I got to make it work. So you can love Hashem with the Yetzer Hara, but the fact that you're broken, that you're not getting anywhere, and that this isn't working. He was in prison and he said, this isn't working. And now today, on his own, through a huge amount of effort and maybe a little bit of support system, I'm not sure what he got, I don't think he got very much, he is a mentor for children who are alcohol addicted, for drug addicted children. He has many children he mentors. He's clean as a whistle, honest as honest can be, and he's so proud to be accepted, welcome into the homes of so many religious people. In fact, one time he took my credit card to go shopping in Lowe's for me for something, and he calls me up and goes, I have your credit card, I didn't return it, I'm not going to be back till next week. I said, okay, fine, whatever, you'll bring it back next week. He says, you trust me with your credit card? I said, of course I trust you with my credit card. So that itself was for him, everything. And he did it himself with his own neshama, that's it. So the sparks are everywhere, okay? And we have to see them and applaud them, encourage them. We don't need to proselytize, but that's not the same thing as building up a person, Selam Elokim, and encouraging them to fulfill fully the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach and understand that they're also here on a mission to gather the sparks and to bring this world back to a place where the Dibros, the letters of the Dibros, come back together and make coherent words and sentences. This is the ultimate Tov. This is our mission in Golus. Every moment of our lives can be part of this mission. Every moment is an opportunity to invest it with Kavod Shemayim, to get a spark out of it, learn something for it. And therefore, although these are sad weeks, Ben HaMetzorim, but they're sad in that we just say this didn't work. It was raw, it was broken, but that means we got to fix it. And it's fixable. And Tisha B'Av, Tes, Tov, is a moed. Mashiach is born. And
a moed is a destination.
A destination, correct. And Bezrat Hashem, this Tisha B'Av should be a true moed. It should be truly the time of Mashiach coming. We should all merit to experience that. Have a wonderful Shabbos, everyone.